They're snippets, and they are. It's tough to tell what context they were given in, but they add additional fuel to questions about how closely Trump might have been linked to Epstein.
So, U.S. Democrats on the Congressional House Oversight Committee have now released new emails to and from the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein referring to Donald Trump. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has released a statement saying the email release was a fake narrative, an attempt to smear Donald Trump. I can talk now to Bart Jansen, who's the White House reporter at USA Today. Welcome to the programme, Bart.
Thanks for having me.
Do tell us then about these emails, and do they put the president in a compromised position, and if so, how?
Well, anything that links Trump again to Jeffrey Epstein is, creates some heartburn for the White House. But Trump has insisted forcefully that he did not know about any of the sex trafficking allegations, that he did attend parties during the 90s with Epstein, but that he ousted him from his club because of his creepy behavior around women. So the emails today add fuel to the fire that perhaps there was more connection than he has acknowledged so far. One of the key emails was from April of 2011, in which Epstein is exchanging messages with his aide, Ghislaine Maxwell, and says that Trump stayed for hours at Epstein's house with one of the alleged victims. So that sort of puts him in the location, but it doesn't say when that happened, what the time frame is, and what might have happened during that visit. Right. Another email says that Epstein is exchanging an email with Michael Wolff, the author who has written books about Donald Trump, and saying that, well, of course Trump knew about all the girls. But again, that doesn't say that Trump necessarily saw nefarious behavior, and it doesn't really explain what he means by knew about all the girls.
So it is fair to say then, is it, that these emails, they raise more potentially awkward questions than providing damning answers?
That's what I would say. I mean, they're snippets, and they are. It's tough to tell what context they were given in, but they add additional fuel to questions about how closely Trump might have been linked to Epstein. And of course, this comes at a time when the House of Representatives here in the United States is considering whether to force the Justice Department to release more of its records into the Epstein investigation. A new House member is being sworn in today, right, and she will provide enough votes to approve legislation that would force the Justice Department to release more records. But that bill would still have to go to the Senate. And of course, it's legislation, so it could be vetoed. It's not clear what that legislation would accomplish if approved. But this comes at a time when more attention is focused on Epstein.
All right. The game goes on then. Bart Jansen at USA Today, thank you so much. So it's been pretty busy where you are in the last couple of hours, hasn't it? Can I just start then with the latest on the Epstein files? Because that's also been moving, as far as I can see, pretty rapidly. Can I just wind back a couple of hours to the emails which have come to light, which mention Donald Trump? Just take us through what that's all about at that point.
Yes, so the Democrats released a small number of emails suggesting that Trump knew more about Epstein's sex offences and trafficking than he has previously acknowledged. They're not, we should say very explicitly, implicating him in those by any stretch, but there's a suggestion that where Trump has said that he had no idea about these crimes at that time, that actually that might not, if these emails are to be believed, be completely accurate. So that's what the Democrat release was contained. And then we had from House Republicans a trove, over 23,000 emails, documents from Epstein's estate that have been released by the House Republicans who are on that oversight committee, yes, which of course now journalists are pouring through.
Right. So when it comes to the first batch released by the Democrats, there's mentions of the name of Donald Trump in correspondence between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's doing time, as we know, in a slightly softer prison than she was in, having spoken to Donald Trump's lawyers. But these raise questions. They don't provide any kind of damning evidence of the knowledge or involvement of the president?
No, so in 2011, there's this email from Epstein to Maxwell saying, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's then a redacted name. Spent hours at my house with him. He's never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. And Maxwell said, I've been thinking about that in response. So, of course, that's not conclusive by any means and raises a number of questions about exactly what Epstein means by the dog that hasn't barked. And of course, this is something that you'll imagine Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, will be asked about when she answers questions from journalists imminently.
Right, and the other bit of that little release of stuff concerns Michael Wolff, the author, in conversation with, in correspondence with Ghislaine Maxwell. I was talking rather darkly about the possibility of, to Epstein himself, talking about the possibility of using information about Donald Trump and what he knew and where he was, and somehow dangling that over the head of the president, but without making clear what exactly he was talking about.
Exactly. I mean, Michael Wolff, the journalist, is in a number of these documents, we should say. At one point, writing to Epstein in 2016, you need an immediate counter-narrative to the book. I believe Trump offers an ideal opportunity. It's a chance to make the story about something other than you, while at the same time letting you frame your own story. Also, becoming an anti-Trump voice gives you a certain political cover, which you decidedly don't have now. Now, journalists are still going through everything that Michael Wolff has said here, but we've heard a defense already from Caroline Leavitt that, Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club decades ago for being a creep to his female employees, including Virginia Giuffre. So I'm sure you'll hear more of that sort from her shortly.
Right. And what about this then other dump of Epstein stuff from the Republican side? And I'll just pick on one particular point. I mean, what is this about Peter Mandelson being in contact with Epstein as late as 2016? It was previously thought to be about 2010 when that stopped.
Yes. I mean, in one of these emails, I think Mandelson is asked whether or not Jeffrey Epstein should go on the Today program, and he responds no. But in respect to Peter Mandelson, it doesn't seem at the moment like there's a great deal more from him in these documents. Of course, we already have had his sacking by Sir Keir Starmer as the ambassador to Washington on account of previously undisclosed emails suggesting that the connection between him and Epstein was closer than previously thought. So in that respect, at the moment, it doesn't look like these have a huge number more revelations as regards to Mandelson specifically.
Okay, Lara and Kate and Mikey, let's just pause there for a minute because we're going to cross now live to Washington, D.C. Caroline Leavitt, the President's press secretary, has been giving her regular briefing, and the subject of the BBC has been raised, I think, by GB News. Let's have a listen. We're going to put away there from the press conference going on now in Washington, D.C. in the West Wing. Caroline Leavitt, of course, at the podium. Lara Spirit still with us for the moment from Washington, D.C. Times Washington correspondent. Lara, just one other quick point before you leave us, and as always, really grateful to have you here. So we heard there, and it won't surprise anyone to see that very robust argument from Caroline Leavitt that the president has nothing to fear, nothing's been hidden. He said the administration's been more transparent than any other we've ever seen. This isn't the end of this by any means, though, is it, Lara? Because now the Congress is reopening. We're going to see a congresswoman sworn in from a district in Arizona, and that will be the one vote that's needed to vote for the full opening of the Epstein files. Doesn't mean that necessarily is going to happen, but that's going to be another step which starts to move on in these coming days.
Yeah, precisely. And it's expected that you could see a vote in early December on that question, given that, as you say, we now have the crucial vote being given to the Democrats who are trying to get the full release of those files. Of course, journalists and indeed anyone remotely interested in the story will probably be pouring through many of those thousands of files that we do now have as of just a few hours ago. It should be said that many of the mentions of Trump obviously are if not possibly all of them, are completely innocuous at this moment. And given that we know that many of these people were moving in the same circles, it's not necessarily unusual to see him mentioned in some respects. And also Leavitt there, correct to say that Virginia Giuffre, who of course died in April by suicide, had said when she was asked, I don't think Donald Trump participated in anything. So I think from that respect, the White House will be feeling slightly confident. Obviously, the bigger point here is that they don't want to be talking about Epstein in circumstances where the Democrats have caved over the shutdown shutdown, have not got the main demands that they said they would need in order to reopen the government, and are subsequently in a massive row where many people are calling for Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, to resign. So the Democrats are in a pretty divided place over the shutdown. Many people feel it was a massive missed opportunity. And instead of, as Levitt is saying, there being a conversation about how the government is now reopening and there's a big political sore that the Democrats have to heal, they are talking instead about Epstein, which, as we know, is not necessarily a massively confident area for a number of people.